listening to another episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. I'm Andrew Stillwell, and there's a lot going on in Texas right now. Recently, we've talked Tormenta Rampaging Run, which is going to open later this summer. But not to be outdone by themselves, this is not the only coaster-related work going on at Six Flags Over Texas this year. And earlier this spring, the park kind of teased there were some changes coming as it related to the Mr. Freeze queue line, and I wanted to get to the bottom of it. We love the nerdy deep dives here at Coaster 101, and so I thought of no one better to ask about the creative process behind the queue line changes than Six Flags corporate creative producer Clayton Lawrence. So Clayton is going to join us on the podcast this week. Clayton, welcome to the Coaster 101 podcast.
Hey there, Andrew. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to join. I love the podcast. I listen to it all the time and happy to be here.
Hey, listen, if we can have a guest who's like, I'm excited to come on this podcast that I regularly listen to, that makes me feel good. So thank you so much.
Yeah, I listen on the treadmills at the gym. So you definitely helped me get through my hour of walking.
We got to get you a better playlist. But I want to know. Let's start with you personally. You know, Clayton, you're a longtime Cedar Fair / Six Flags veteran. But tell us a little bit about your background in the industry.
Yeah, so I actually started. My home park was California's Great America at the time, 2004. It was Paramount's Great America, and I was a lifeguard at age 16. But I've always loved theater and entertainment. Specifically live theater. And then I fell in love with theme parks as a youth. And then I realized, oh, wait a second, theme parks have entertainment. So I love coasters. I love the parks. My mom would take me to Great America and I would, go on the coasters and watch shows with her. So my first season was as a lifeguard. And then I transitioned over to the entertainment team and then just kind of worked my way through the ranks. And for many years, I was the entertainment manager for California's Great America and got to create and design all of the haunt product, a lot of special events, shows, summer shows that just kept getting bigger and bigger on us. And then in 2016, I was able to lead the creative and development in the team for the company's first Winterfest. And we built that at Great America. We put it in a box, knowing that the next year we're going to roll it out to Kings Island, Worlds of Fun, and I believe Carowinds. And when that happened, I graduated to corporate and became corporate Cedar Fair. And I was able to work on live show development and festival and event development. So I rolled out a couple more Winterfests. And then I got to lead the creative development for Grand Carnival at multiple parks. And then I got to just help with new summer initiatives, help create seasonal events such as State Line Celebration at Carowinds and Tricks and Treats. I got to kind of work all over the country with all of our parks, developing live entertainment. And then when around 2020, it came full circle for me because we were redoing the water park that I started my career at Great America called South Bay Shores. And at the time, we really were starting to lean into story-based attractions. And we were able to kind of use a theatrical lens to apply to our rides and attractions. And I just we're all one team. So we're planning and design and live entertainment. So I was able to kind of take my bag of tricks that I learned in the theme park, in the live entertainment side, and bring it over to the attraction side. So that's how I became a creative producer.
Okay. And like you mentioned it a little bit with the emphasis on story-based attractions. You know, we've seen this with Mystic Timbers at Kings Island. We've seen it with Iron Menace at Dorney Park, Copperhead Strike at Carowinds. And you were kind of in the background, as it were, a little bit as these more story-based coasters were being in development. Can you talk a little bit about the importance of, the shift, I think, from more so a coaster that happens to sit in a parking lot or a portion of the park to giving it a story, and why was that important?
Yeah, I think the industry is craving that and the industry is moving that direction. Obviously we have our leaders, Disney, Universal, and they just do it so well. But, when we were, those projects you were mentioning, they were successful in that the coaster or the ride experience was themed and there was a story and maybe show moments and show scenes. But we really wanted to take it a step further and not only develop the story of the ride, but the surrounding land, F&B menus and thematics, and also the retail opportunities. And so we started to actually look at our attractions. If we're going to build a coaster, we know that there's a audience for the coaster, but we know that there may be a bigger audience that's coming to appreciate the coaster, or like my mom would be sitting on a bench while I'm in line for the coaster. So we started to really break away from just the isolated one attraction experience and look around the area. Plus, a lot of our parks are 50 years old, and by putting a coaster in, we're able to affect a holistic land, and touch more of the park itself, and really tell our story for everybody who comes. So not just the coaster riders, but also the fans of the parks and the people who are holding our bags while we're waiting in line, or want to grab a bite to eat in between coaster rides. So we really started to look at our story and branched it out into the land in the parks.
Okay. And this is clearly happening this year at Six Flags Over Texas. Tormenta is, bringing this new life. There's a new food and beverage option. This whole area is going to be rethemed. Kind of I think it's Spain and one other country this is all taking part in. But this is not the only attraction at Six Flags Over Texas that's getting some love this year. And that's, Mr. Freeze, which again, we're coming up on 30 years of Mr. Freeze at Six Flags Over Texas. How was the decision made to kind of add some additional coaster theming? It's a big capital year for Six Flags Over Texas. How does that budget say, okay, we're already doing this, but we also want to do this? How does like Mr. Freeze kind of get thrown into those 2026 plans?
Yeah, I think we always looked at 26 as kind of two projects happening. One for the 65th anniversary, and how are we going to pay homage to the original OG Six Flags Park? And we knew that that was a um, really important milestone at an important park. So it was the right thing to do. Uh, we got to, shortly after the merge, we got to tour the parks, a small design group of us. And when we got to Over Texas, it was exciting because obviously it's the OG. And when we got there, we just kind of went through and wanted to make sure that the guest experience was refreshed and sight lines were being presented correctly. And on that trip, I didn't know that when you walk through the turnstiles at Over Texas, the next little courtyard plaza, I thought that was like kind of the entry plaza. And then when I looked at Google Earth, which is still there, 2013, there was a whole set of ticket booths that were removed. And so once we realized that, over the years, this area has been reworked a couple times, we wanted to go in and really make sure it was clear that when you got into the gathering plaza and then you looked towards the carousel, that you had a clear shot of the carousel, the train was visible. That's a major attraction at the park. And so we really just we walked land by land and kind of wanted to make sure that the lands were still intact and that we wanted to revitalize them. And at that time, the park had already kind of redid the Mexico area. They refreshed it, repainted it, brought in buntings and murals, and it was looking amazing. So for us, it was like the next step was Spain. And, we'll continue to do work throughout the park. And really, we always talk about the new exciting stuff, but a section of our department is revitalization, restoration of rides and attractions. And so we just kind of, at least for Mr. Freeze, we actually started over at Batman. Batman was getting some work done, and I was able to walk it. And he was like, I really wish that when you walk through the sewer, you feel like you're walking through a sewer, because at the time it was like a new piece of metal. And so we did bring in a scenic artist to come through Batman and give it washes and restore, work with the parks maintenance team, restore some of the effects and the lighting. And then once we kind of did that last October, the next area of opportunity was over at Mr. Freeze. And so, it oftentimes happens. We get really excited. We do something and it looks great. So then it's like, oh, let's keep this momentum going. And so collaborating with the park and resources, and just kind of identifying the things that are beloved in our parks and restoring them, bringing them back. Some things may have taken a left turn somewhere along the lines, but we know that people are such fans of certain things within our parks, and we want to celebrate those. We want to make sure we're still presenting them years down the road. But really, the 65th anniversary was our North Star. And then in addition to whenever we put in a big capital project like Tormenta, we want to make sure that the park is looking the best we can for the people who are going to be coming to Tormenta and maybe haven't been to the park in the last couple of years. So we want to kind of, we want them to come for Tormenta, but stay for all the other cool stuff that we got going on.
For sure. And you mentioned the Batman refurbishments and, kind of going through that. I know they did a similar project over at Six Flags Over Georgia in the past year or so. Is it just kind of restoring that queue to its what I'm going to call former glory?
Yeah. I mean, back when those rides were installed, they were really immersive. They were really well done. Some of the designers that worked for independent companies that worked on those back in the day actually work with us now on new attractions. And so we just kind of identified these have kind of lost their way over the years. That's one of the things, like it's so exciting to put people into immersive worlds for us. Especially in parks that maybe are a little too hot and we want to get them out of the shade. But how do we entertain them while we have them held captive in these ride queues? And so we studied a lot of what was the original design of this attraction, and what should it be? What is it now? And then what do we want it to be in the future? And so we ask ourselves those questions in order to solve where we're trying to get to.
Right. And how long did this whole process take? Like you mentioned, again, back in October, there were things that were done to the Batman queue. We're here in April, which is 6 months later. How far back are we going to kind of ideate this whole process?
So in the case of Mr. Freeze, so we had just completed the Batman scenic initiative. And then we literally walked from Batman over to Mr. Freeze, walked the queue, had some clear goals. He wanted to clean it up and bring a story element back to a showpiece, a show moment in the middle, back to the ride. And so from that conversation, I went over back to the office. I picked up the phone and called Plague Productions. And the reason we reached out to Plague Productions is because they had just completed the scenic work for us at Wrath of Rakshasa at Great America. They also were coming off of the Conjuring Beyond Fear mazes. And they were in the process of getting ready to work on the Phantom Theater at Kings Island facade, the exterior facade. So the reason we went with them is because they really know how to get the most out of scenic elements and fabricate scenic things, mix it with audio and lighting and show control, and really give a well-rounded experience in the space. And so, and John at Plague Productions and his whole crew, they're always up for a challenge. So I kind of gave them the objective. We flew out to the park and walked the space together and from there, he went back to his team and they worked up some concepts for the ride. Um, and by end of November, we were mobilizing and getting the ride ready for the new year. We had to really start with base coating. The whole building needed repaint. I think over the years, as the ride queue evolved, I think there was more emphasis on kind of fixing and patching what was there. There was a lot of graffiti in there. But when we pulled out the story of what this ride was back when it opened 30 years ago, you're walking in a factory, abandoned factory, but it's active doing something. We wanted to, it was an ice cream factory, but nothing in this queue led you to believe, except for some corrugated panels, that you were in a cold, frozen ice cream factory that's a front for something. Something is happening in there. Someone is doing activities in there, and so it was really important for us to really make you feel like you're walking into the space, because over the years it kind of disappeared. So Plague was our go-to for that, and they knocked it out of the park.
Right. And Plague clearly has experience with the various IPs. You mentioned The Conjuring. You mentioned, bringing the Phantom Theater back to Kings Island. As you and Plague are working together on this, Snowy's Ice Cream Factory, I know a lot of the Six Flags parks, they draw their inspiration for specifically their DC Comics IP from the kind of the cartoon version. Was there any, thinking back to I think it was 1997, which was the Batman and Robin with George Clooney, Chris O'Donnell, and Arnold Schwarzenegger's playing Mr. Freeze. Is this where kind of that inspiration, is there any inspiration that kind of came from that?
Yeah, so we do at the parks try to follow the comics, the retro comics, and stay true to that. But there was some viewings of that movie just to kind of get storyline and plot going. And what's really nice about this brand, and this is actually my first DC project with Warner Brothers. I come from the Cedar Fair side, so I'm used to Peanuts IP or creating our own. And so what's been really nice and cool and a learning experience for me and the team is working with the WB licensing brand team. They know the brands inside and out, and they are really good stewards of, how the characters should be portrayed and what they, Batman wouldn't be posed like that, or this wouldn't be the right weapon used. And so we did work with them on getting the concept going. And then we really leaned on them, and we continue to lean on them to be the experts of the brand. And so it's been, we've been working on Looney Tunes Land at Magic Mountain, and I thought I knew the Looney Tunes, but I'm learning all sorts of things with this team. And it's just been a great partnership. And I think that everyone shared the common goal of how do we make this attraction a star again.
Perfect. And I want to go back to this social media tease that the park put out. Let's look at the date here. Earlier in January. So we're talking 3-4 months at this point. This is the GNN, the Gotham News Network 7-day weather forecast presented by Snowy's Cones Ice Cream. Again, the factory that the Q is residing in. I'm going to go ahead and read the social copy here, and we can talk about the different elements and how it all ties in. Sound good?
Great. Sounds good.
All right. So the Gotham News Network is here to give you your 7-day weather forecast presented by Snowy's Cones Ice Cream under new management. Sunday will be bright outside, a perfect day to paint the house. Monday will begin to dip in temperature, but light will peek through the clouds. Tuesday will be colder and overcast. Wednesday will bring some precipitation, so you might want to get a rain jacket just in case. Thursday will bring lighting, so you should stay inside. Friday will begin to bring some light flurries. This will bring the coolest coast to the weekend. There will be a reverse blast of wind chill on Saturday. And lastly, Sunday, there will be sub-zero temperatures in Gotham City, so everyone chill and get ready to take shelter because a big freeze is coming. Hashtag Gotham City Freeze, hashtag SFOT 2026. There's there's a good bit to unpack there. I think I wrote about this back in January, and I said those exact words. There's a lot to unpack. So with this attraction, what are some of the key elements that have been changed or modified or added to the queue?
Yeah, so by being when we say we're story-based attractions, the story is a really important design tool for us because that allows everybody working on the project to work in tandem, design in tandem, tease in tandem. And so, really, this is a simple one. There's Snowy's ice cream shop or ice cream factory, and you're walking through it. And I think the element that really ties this together and it gives you an aha moment is the freeze gun that's in the middle of the two-story queue. Um, I think that's my favorite element because of the projection mapping of Batman as a target. And you're seeing that this is where they're testing it and they're getting it prepped and ready to, go hit the town and freeze over everything. So it was really important that from the beginning, when you walk through the first set of doors into the queue, that you are fully immersed into the factory and the coldness, and we're in here doing something kind of ominous. You see the freeze gun. It goes off, I believe, every 4 to 6 minutes. And you're starting to understand like why you're here. And then you go into the ride platform, and we extended the story into there. You see Mr. Freeze, who's up at the control booth, and he's there now, revitalized. He's been there for years, but I believe he hasn't. He's been sleeping on the job, but we just wanted to move you from each story beat, and then now you're being blasted out on with the coaster. You're being blasted out onto the ride path. So yeah, it just taking what we had and making it make sense within our new storyline was really important. And then, of course, give you cool things to look at. I remember our first walk turned to me and said, I really want to make it snow in here. And so that was something that we're like, okay, whatever we do, we got to make sure it snows. And so we were able to figure out that with Plague and the operations team. And so, yeah, we're just really excited that we were able to touch the whole experience and refresh it, including Mr. Snowy himself, the facade, the entrance facade. He, over the years, had some chunks maybe missing from him. And we were able to go in and repair him and make him look fresh, including all the neon and the exterior lighting package. The park was able to get that restored and looking good. And so now the future for this area is just to keep chipping away at revitalizing it and restoring it. There's some facade work that we'd love to get to, and we were able to go back with Plague and do some stuff to the entry of Batman. The new columns have been redone, and then they refreshed the exit queue scene with the Batman weapons display case and new lighting and show control. So we're able to kind of complete both of those projects. So now we're just in addition to this area and Mike Boyer and all of the park management, going through the whole park and looking for areas of opportunity to refresh and restore.
Okay. How much? I mean, I know the park. They, for a while they were 12-month operation. Some weekends closed during the week. I know it closed. The park closed for about 6 or 7 weeks from January to February. How important was that closure? As theme park fans, we obviously want parks to be open, but how important was that closure and how beneficial was that closure for you, your team, Plague Productions, and everybody to get the park? As you said, you want people to come for Tormenta, they want to stay for everything else, but how important were those 2 weeks or not 2 weeks, 2 months in, ensuring and allowing you and your teams to kind of make those visual improvements?
I think, selfishly on, the project management side, it gets us more hours in a day. We can drive forklifts and trucks and cranes through the park to really attack and confidently get the projects done. The funny thing about this was that we were working on phase one while Holiday in the Park was going on. So if you happen to walk into this queue, you would have seen that we base coated all of the walls purple and blue, and we were starting to make enhancements. So for those keen-eyed viewers, you would have noticed the work happening. And same with Batman the Ride. We were trying to get this done for Holiday in the Park, but we kept kind of adding to the story, and we kept adding elements that we decided that it would be the perfect birthday present or anniversary gift when we reopened. So, for the maintenance teams and construction teams, having those weeks closed are very valuable to us. There are challenges. That's the time of year that gets weather or different, training things happening in the park. But it's really valuable so that way we can confidently deliver the guest experience, because we don't want to do kind of a half done project. We want to introduce it, bam, here it goes, the show is on.
I love it. Well, the traditional 65th anniversary gift is blue sapphires. You had blue sapphire tinted paint and purples and freezing things. So you're pretty close on the blue sapphire for sure.
Yes.
Was there anything in this process, as you Plague, the Warner Brothers licensing team, you're all kind of putting your heads together on this. Is there anything that happened in the process that you were like, you had this idea and you wanted to make happen? But was there anything you personally that kind of came up out of your mind where you're like, we need to make this happen?
For me personally, it was the whole project. We need to make sure this happens, because once we saw it on paper and we saw the concept sketches and designs, I was like, this has to happen. We need to get this going. And so, in some cases, things turned out way better than I imagined. Like the projection of Batman, the target, the audio treatment, which I just love, like the countdown and just the soundscape to the attraction plus the lighting. I can't find a favorite element, although the freeze gun was totally sculpted and built out of Plague's shop. So that was something that was really cool. Also, I love the neon rope lights that we're able to use with LED to kind of simulate energy going through them. So there's just a lot of things that, as I stare at something in concept or on paper, computer screens, for months on end, to finally see it come to life. And, I actually haven't visited to see it fully operational. I do plan on going out there in the next couple weeks, but I've been stalking social media and YouTube videos. And of course, through the process, I get a lot of documentation and progress photos and stuff, but I'm very excited to get to walk the space. And then I love roller coasters, and I have not been on Mr. Freeze. So I'm excited to finally experience that coaster.
I love it. And as you're stalking social media and these YouTube videos, from what I've seen, the reception has been, pretty impressive. Like it's one of those things that I'm not meaning to be negative when I say this. For so many years, Six Flags as a chain, I feel like, had this unfair reputation, right? And the fact that they're now going into this coaster that opened 28 years ago, and they're showing it this amount of love, I think theme park fans, they're definitely seeming to appreciate it. Do you feel the same way?
Yeah, definitely. And we've seen this playbook work at Cedar Fair parks. I know my home park at Great America, myself personally, as the entertainment guy, was going over and repainting the flight deck queue or the Top Gun queue and cleaning up the elements and taking the trash out from things that may have been left behind. And I think that everybody, our whole company, all of the parks, the management, the associates, everyone has a love for the parks. And it's just now a matter of encouraging everyone, find the opportunities to restore It's not always about new, which yes, new is exciting, but it's also there's what's the nostalgia factor? What is something that, every time you go, you want to throw the penny in the well, or you need to swing by over here for this ice cream cone? And, what are those things that are comforting and exciting about our parks? And let's make sure that they're looking good, they're looking the best they can, and we'll keep improving. And there's a level of surprise and delight. And hopefully, once we're done kind of sprucing up all the parks and all the lands, then it'll be time to just maintain and keep on top of what is there. And I think it's just been a real shift in mindset of let's not turn our back to the products that people love so much.
I love it. And did you ever have any like interest in comic books or superheroes growing up? Like, you get to be kind of a steward of this brand to the next generation. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I growing up was a Power Ranger kid. So I loved Power Rangers. That was more action TV show. But I've always loved the comics brands. Definitely Batman. I love the Batman and Joker conflict. But I will say that since the merge happened, I've been learning more and more about DC Comics and just all the sub brands, and I've been doing my homework and researching all the characters, and it's just been really exciting to get to work in a different space that, DC with the comics and superheroes and villains, you can kind of get darker a little bit in design, or you can, pay something off with a hero moment. And so it's really exciting because we have a lot of experience with Peanuts. And so we have our formulas and work really well close with the Peanuts brand. But we're learning more and more about what we can do with DC and Looney Tunes. And it's exciting for the parks because I think that we're able to present those in ways that for the future, in ways that we haven't been presenting them. And we want to start, customizing the stories. Even though it's Batman, what does that mean to over Texas specifically? What are we doing? And we're trying to get out of the cloning process of story, and we want to present regional, location-based, relevant stories. So, why just because we have 5 Batmans everywhere, how do we present it differently in each scenario moving forward? So it's really exciting and refreshing to get to step in and learn a new IP and really steward the brand.
I've got to ask, this isn't in our like rundown of questions. This might be putting you on the spot. When you think of Batman, what actor do you think of? Are you a George Clooney? Are you Adam West? Are you more modern? I'm thinking, Heath Ledger, Christian Bale. Like, who is your Batman?
It's George Clooney. It every time my mind goes there, that whole generation. So that's where I go with it. But I just remember as a kid, there was like a Batman series, a comic series that would play, and I loved Batman. I always, like, it still is a dream of mine. I'm getting closer as we're working on these projects of driving a Batmobile. That's still one of my goals in life, is to like go to the gas station and fill up the Batmobile and then drive it back to the park, of course. But it's pretty fun. And, we have members on our team, including Ken Parks, who's our corporate VP of creative. He's really well versed in comic books and the movies, and he really is a guiding kind of our North Star with some of these projects to make sure that we're on the right track in paying the close attention to details that these stories bring.
I love it. And before we wrap this up, I know you sit in a unique position where you're over all of the Six Flags parks, and there are some new additions coming in 26 and 27. Are there any other I'll call them refreshes? I think That's the best way to put it. But refreshes to existing coasters in the chain that we can be on the lookout for in the near future.
Yeah, so when it comes to the restoration projects and refreshes, we do lean on the parks to identify what those projects are, and then we work with them on getting them the resources to get it done, whether it's repainting of coasters or tweaking a food building or merchandise location. And so we do have running lists. One thing that everyone should know is that we know exactly what we need to polish up or dust off or repaint. And so we're always looking for new opportunities. And yeah, I think that there is quite an extensive list of cool projects that we are working on, that are restoration projects. Obviously, you're going to have to wait for that vague social media post to hit. That's going to, it'll hit and tease a couple months prior, like this did for Mr. Freeze. But yeah, we are constantly looking at how do we improve what we have and how do we remain, or how do we restore and remain, keep everyone's favorite memories going.
I love it. Okay, so your advice here: keep an eye on the individual park social channels. They will announce those when you're ready to do it. But the good news is, because you and your team, and perhaps the teams of external teams like Plague, are behind it, it's going to be a home run every time.
Well, that's our goal. We will, we do partner with amazing outside design groups, fabricators, construction teams. And then, of course, with the parks who live in the space day in, day out. So, yeah, it's a huge collaborative effort, and no one is sitting there, driving one bus. We're all driving together. But, yeah, it's really exciting time because, next time you go to your park, there's going to be something. We're always doing something, whether it's a new set of trash cans or a couple of benches that are new, or shade structures, or a repainted building. Those are just as important to us as a coaster refresh or a new coaster. We're always trying to present our show in the best way possible. And so next time you go to a Six Flags park, look at monument signs or ride signs, or we did a fast lane initiative for the Six Flags Legacy Parks. So look for wait time monitors and just other amenities that we're offering to make the guest experience even more awesome.
I love it. You mentioned that. I got to bring up our buddy Marcus Leshock. He shared some recent progress from Six Flags Great America. They've got a new staircase for Raging Bull, which I told him was a step up from what they previously had. So I had to do it. I had to throw it in there.
Yes.
But Clayton, thank you so much for the time today. We really appreciate it. I can't wait to get back to Six Flags Over Texas, not only to ride Tormenta Rampaging Run, but also to see all the changes. It's been a while since I've been there. I want to say like 12 years at this point. So I'm due to get back. Can't wait to do it.
Yeah, definitely. It, just in the last year, the improvements that have been made, the investments and strategic levers being pulled to really restore the charm at that park has been really well received and rewarding to work on.
Perfect. Well, I don't know if you're going to listen to this one on the treadmill, but that's going to do it for this week's episode of the Coaster 101 podcast. As always, after you follow your local Six Flags park on social media, make sure you're also following Coaster 101. We are at Coaster 101 everywhere you can consume your podcasts, or everywhere you consume social media. We're also everywhere you consume podcasts. Have a website, coaster101.com. And then if you're listening, make sure you're liking, rating, reviewing, subscribing. We've had some really great guests in the last couple of weeks. We've had, go look at our podcast list in wherever you listen. Go find our guests, but keep the ratings coming, because the more people who listen, the better chance we have great guests like Clayton, who can come on and then listen to himself when he's on the treadmill. It's going to be great.
Yes.
As always, a huge thank you to JM Entertainment, somebody I'm sure Clayton is very familiar with, who does our theme music. And that's going to do it for this week's episode. We will talk to y'all again soon. See ya.